Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Leah and most of my videos are focused on unsolved crimes and mysteries. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. You know I'm always happy to see you. So today we're going to be talking about Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. I've been looking into this case because after it came out that Brian had called his parents and said Gabby is gone and I need a lawyer, I was like, what? And I started looking into the case just a little bit here and there, and before you knew it, and there's just some things that I want to share with you. So without making a mile-long intro, I just want to say, if you're ready, let's do this. Gabby Petito was a really beautiful 22-year-old girl living in Northport, Florida with her 23-year-old fiancé, Brian Laundrie. They lived in a house there with Brian's parents, Christopher and Roberta Laundrie. Gabby was working as a pharmacy technician, and Brian, he was selling his own artwork designs online. They were working really hard to save money to go on a cross-country road trip. On December 11th, 2020, Gabby announced on Instagram that they had finally bought a van that they were going to use for their road trip adventure. But they kept working really hard to save more money, and in the meantime, they completely redecorated the back of the van and made it look like a really beautiful, comfortable room they could sleep in. On July 2nd, 2021, they were finally ready, and the road trip began. They were so in love and were so excited to go on their adventure together. Gabby wanted to be a vlogger, so she made a lot of videos and took pictures everywhere they went, and everyone who wanted to, they were following them online. It was so beautiful, and you could just see and feel the excitement and love between them.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
They saw so many beautiful places. On the 4th of July, Monument Rock in Kansas. On the 8th of July, Colorado Springs in Colorado. The 10th of July, Great Sand Dunes in Colorado. The 16th of July, Zion National Park in Utah. The 21st of July, Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. The 26th of July, Mystic Hot Springs in Utah. The 29th of July, Canyonlands National Park in Utah. And August 12th, Arches National Park in Utah. On August 12th, 2 911 calls were made to the Moab Police Department around 4:30 p.m. One witness saw a man slapping his girlfriend. She was crying a lot and walking back and forth next to their van. But the boyfriend, he kept pushing her away and slapping her. The other witness said that it was the girlfriend that was the aggressor, and she kept slapping her boyfriend and scratching him. And the boyfriend kept pushing her to keep her away. It turned out that the reason they had this fight was because that Gabby was in the back of the van working really hard to get her website up and running because she wanted to be a vlogger. And she had severe OCD and had just organized and cleaned the back of the van. And then Brian, he stepped in there with dirty feet, and she got really annoyed with him. And when she got annoyed with him, Brian got really angry. And when they were outside the van, he locked all the doors and refused to let her in before she calmed down. He went in the driver's seat himself, but all the other doors, they were locked. And Gabby was desperately trying to get inside the van and tried to actually crawl over him in the driver's seat. And she kept saying to him, "Don't be a jerk, just let me in the van." She had a lot of anxiety and was terrified that he was going to leave her behind in Moab. The witnesses described the van to the police and told them the car had Florida plates on it. The police went out looking for them, and they actually found them driving on a road. And you can actually hear the police say that it looked like the driver was intoxicating, swinging from side to side. And when the car finally hit the curb, the police pulled them over.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated. Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb.
When the police walked up to the car, Gabby rolled down her window and apologized to the police straight away while she was crying. She said it was her fault because she distracted Brian while he was driving. The police told them to step out of the car and separated them and asked both of them what happened.
What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were here camping yesterday, and camping got messed up, flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there.
Brian was cool, calm, smiling, and making small jokes with the officers while telling them that Gabby was a bit crazy. The police noticed a small scratch or cut under his eye and a few scratches on his arm. And he told them that it was Gabby and it was probably her fingernails, but he was fine and was not in any pain. When they spoke to Gabby, she had a lot of anxiety and she was crying a lot. And she explained that she had severe OCD and anxiety and just wanted the van to be clean and organized.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I can get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I guess my vibe is like I really like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I have a lot of stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed. And he doesn't really believe that I can do any of it. So that's kind of been like a, I don't know, he's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning. And he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because
told
of
me
your OCD?
told me I need to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time. And he really stresses me out. And this is a rough morning.
They noticed that she had some bruises on the left side of her face, on her arm and on her neck. When they asked her if Brian had hit her or slapped her, she again took all the blame and said, I guess so, but I slapped him first.
Yeah? Is there something on your cheek here? Looks like, did you get hit in the face? Kind of looks like something like hit you in the face. And then over on your arm, shoulder, right here. That's new, huh? It's kind of a new mark.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Can I see the other side of your face? So, what happened here and here?
I'm not sure. It was a...
First name,
I was just trying to get in the back of the car and his backpack was on the back.
So the backpack got you? So there's two people that came to us and told us that they saw him hit you. There's two people saying that they saw him punch you. We're just independent witnesses by Moonflower.
Well, to be honest, I definitely hit him first.
Where'd you hit him?
I slapped him.
You slapped him first? And then just on his face?
Can you get him to shut up?
How many times did you slap him?
India, Alpha.
Just a couple.
And then his reaction was to do what?
Okay, I so I really just slapped him.
He just grabbed you?
Yeah.
Did he Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, and then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you.
I guess, yeah, but I hit him first.
Where did he hit you? Don't worry, just be honest.
He grabbed my face, just I guess. He didn't hit me in the face, he didn't punch me in the face or anything.
Did he slap your face or what?
Well, he grabbed me with his nail, and I guess that's why it looks. I definitely have a cut right here, because I can feel it when I touch it, it burns. But
okay.
The police called one of the witnesses who saw Gabby slap Brian, and they came to the conclusion that Gabby was the aggressor, and she was actually very, very close to getting arrested for domestic violence. But Gabby and Brian said to the officers that they loved each other and they were engaged, and none of them wanted to press any charges. So the police just decided to separate them for one night. So they gave Gabby the keys to the van, and they gave Brian a ride to the Bowen Motel. The next day, things seemed to have calmed down, and it looked like everything was back to normal, and everything was gonna be okay. On August 17th, Brian flew back home to Florida to obtain some items and to empty and close him and Gabby's storage unit, just trying to save some extra money. On August 23rd, Brian flew back to rejoin Gabby on the road trip. On August 27th, a woman came forward on Instagram and said that her and her boyfriend had just been to a restaurant called the Mary Piglets in Jackson, Wyoming. They were sitting right next to Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. She explained that Brian was screaming at the hostess and Gabby was in tears and apologizing. She actually went outside the restaurant very, very upset, but Brian, he was very angry and aggressive. And 4 times he went outside the restaurant but went back inside shouting and screaming at the staff. And that was the last time the couple was seen together.
Matt and I just realized, because I'm a freaking dumbass and I did not put 2 and 2 together, that we not only saw like a blowout of a situation between Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie in Wyoming when we were there. I'm freaking the fuck out. Yes, we have already talked to authorities. Like, how I did not put 2 and 2 together that this happened, I don't know. So I'm following this case. Matt's not. He's a guy. He has other shit going on. He could probably care less. I'm filling him in on this case a couple days ago, and I guess maybe he Googled it and saw a picture of Brian. Matt has an insane photographic memory. And so for 2 days now, he's like, I fucking know that guy Brian. I don't know how, but I know this guy Brian. I've seen him before. When Matt says that, anyway, we were in Wyoming. So Matt woke up this morning and he's freaking out. And he's like, oh my God, I know how he looks familiar. Nina, we saw them in Wyoming. They were the couple fighting at the restaurant. We were at this restaurant, you guys. Friday, August 27th, 1 p.m., sitting right next to them. They got kicked out of the restaurant and were fighting with the hostess. They were fighting with the hostess. She was hysterically crying. And she walked out and she was crying and she was staying on the sidewalk. And I was watching the whole thing unfold. And he walked back in the restaurant and he's fighting with the hostess. And I didn't know what happened. I don't even know if they got kicked out, but they left abruptly. And she was standing on the sidewalk crying and he walked back in and was screaming at the hostess and then walked back out. And then he walked back in 4 more times to talk to the manager and to tell the hostess off. And all right. I'm calming down and I'm going to try to speak more clearly. I don't even know if these videos are uploading or if they're uploading in order or if they make any sense. I'm just freaking out right now. I'm having an out of body experience. How I did not remember this situation, it just left my memory. We stayed in Wyoming for another 4 or 5 days for a wedding and we just had an amazing trip and I didn't think about the couple fighting in the restaurant ever again. But Matt knew he had seen this guy before and he could not drop it, and then it just clicked this morning. He woke up out of bed and he was screaming bloody murder and he was like, oh my God, I know, I remember it was them in the restaurant. And it just I felt my blood left my body. I was like, oh my God, God, like, you're right. Like, it was them. It's just crazy. It feels surreal. Like, now I feel, I don't know.
Gabby stayed in close contact with her family, and they would call and text each other several times a week. The last time Gabby's mom, Nicole, spoke to Gabby was on August 25th, and she had told her they were in Bridger Teton National Park. Since that day, she didn't hear anything from Gabby, and she couldn't get in contact with her. On August 30th, Nicole, Gabby's mom, received 2 texts from Gabby's mobile phone, and it said, "There's no service in Yosemite." Then she got another text that said, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting missed calls and voicemails." And if her mom wasn't worried before, she definitely was now, because Stan is Gabby's grandfather, and she never called him Stan, she called him Grandpa. She kept calling Gabby and texted her, but no one answered and no one replied. She then decided to call Brian, but there was still no answer. She then called Brian's parents, Christopher and Roberta, but no one answered the phone. She then decided to go to their house and knock on the door, but no one answered. They refused to open the door. On August 11th, she decided to call the police to report Gabby missing. And a few days later, the police called her and told her that Brian had been back home in Northport with his family since the 1st of September. But Gabby, she was not there. And when the police went to the house, they already had a lawyer there, and all of them refused to talk. Gabby was officially reported missing, and it was all over the news, and social media just exploded. They made videos, they shared Gabby's picture everywhere. Protesters turned up outside the Laundrie's house demanding that they started talking, because everybody wanted to know why Brian Laundrie had returned home with the van, but without Gabby.
Do you think it's okay to leave a young 22-year-old person in the middle of nowhere?
My friend's life is at stake. He saw her last. I just wish he'd say something.
But not even that made the family react. They still refused to talk to the police, the FBI, or Gabby's family. Gabby's mom wrote a letter to the Laundrie family that her lawyer read out loud on a press conference. But the Laundries, they still didn't respond, and they actually blocked Gabby's mother so she couldn't call them, text them, and they also blocked her on Facebook. Now let's take a look at what was going on the other side according to witnesses and law enforcement. On August 27th, the same day Gabby and Brian was in that restaurant, the Mary Piglet, where Brian was extremely aggressive and angry. A couple in a van was driving in the Bridger Teton area looking for a campground. They had a dash cam installed and they recorded their whole trip for social media. When they drove down the road, they drove straight by Gabby's van and didn't even know it. When they opened the news and saw that Gabby was missing in the same area they were in, and they saw the description of her van, they knew they had seen it and had it on video, and they contacted the police and the FBI and Gabby's mom and uploaded the video to all of them. On August 28th, Brian called his parents and was frantic. He told them that Gabby was gone and he needed a lawyer. On August 29th, Brian had left the campground in Teton Park and decided to hitchhike. A couple picked up Brian at Coulter Bay, about 10 miles from where him and Gabby was camping. But when they told him that they were heading to Jackson, he freaked out and told them to pull over and let him out. And they did. Then another woman picked up Brian and drove him to the Spread Creek campground. He told her that she could just drop him off by the gate to the campground. But when she told him that it was no problem to drive him inside the campground, he almost jumped out of the car while it was still moving. On September 1st, Brian returned home to Northport, Florida in Gabby's white van without Gabby. His parents were waiting there with a family friend who was also a lawyer. On September 6th, the Laundrie family went camping in Fort DeSoto Park, which is 75 miles from Northport, Florida, where they lived. They had made a reservation for 3 people from the 6th to the 8th of September, but they actually only stayed there one night and drove back home. On September 13th, Brian packed up his Mustang and told his parents that he was going to go for a hike in Carlton Reserve. He left his mobile at home and only brought his backpack, a revolver, and a tent. After 24 to 48 hours, Brian still wasn't back from his hike, and his parents, they got worried about him. They went out looking for him and didn't find Brian, but they did find his car 16 miles from the Carlton Reserve where he said he was going. And on the windshield of the car, there was a note from the police asking that the car to be removed. So they drove Brian's Mustang back home and waited another 48 hours. And on September the 17th, they reported him missing to the police. On the 19th of September, the police and the FBI were out searching for Gabby, and they found her body in Bridget Teton National Forest next to Spread Creek. She was sent to an autopsy, and it revealed that she had been strangled, and she also had blunt force trauma to her head and her neck. It was also said that more than $1,000 was spent on her debit card. On the 22nd of September, there was a warrant out for Brian Laundrie's arrest for fraud. He had been using a debit card that didn't belong to him. His parents told the police that they didn't know where he was. He had gone on a hike and never returned. A manhunt started to find Brian Laundrie. Even Dog, the bounty hunter, joined in on the search. The police, FBI, and the bounty hunter searched everywhere for a month, but Brian's parents, they were not out searching. On October 19th, Christopher Laundrie, Brian Laundrie's father, he called the FBI and told them that he wanted to go to Carlton Reserve to look for their son. The FBI agreed, and the next day, on October the 20th, the parents met up with the police and the FBI, and they started searching. 30 minutes into the search, Brian's dad found a white dry bag belonging to Brian. And 250 feet away, they found the remains of Brian Laundrie. The state of Brian's remains showed that he had been visited a lot by wild boars and other animals. They gathered his remains and sent it for an autopsy. After, they came out and said the cause of death was a gunshot to the left side of his head. In the white dry bag, they found a wooden box with pictures of Brian. There was also a notebook where he confesses to Gabby's murder. He explained that they were crossing the creek at night, and Gabby had a very nasty fall inside the creek and was screaming out of pain. He got her out of the creek, and she was shaking and crying, and she was just in so much pain he couldn't take it. He just wanted to remove the pain from her, so he decided to kill her out of mercy. 20 feet from Brian's remains, they also found a pair of green shorts. And 10 feet away, they found 2 slip-on shoes. 250 feet in the opposite direction, they found a half-written paper and a red hat. They used a metal detector, and 50 to 60 feet away from Brian's remains, they found a spent bullet. Next to Brian, there was a backpack with a tent inside, It wasn't set up at all. It also contained flares, and next to Brian there was a very rusty handgun that had 2 bullets left inside. And inside the backpack, they also found a very, very disturbing letter from Brian's mom, Roberta. Gabby Petito's family has since sued the Laundrie family for hindering the search for their daughter, and because they knew that she had been murdered by their son, and they knew all along where Gabby's body was. They were awarded $3 million in the wrongful death lawsuit against Christopher and Roberta Laundrie. They also sued the Moab Police Department, and as far as I can see, the trial against the Moab Police Department, they feel like the Moab Police Department misread all the signs of domestic violence, and instead of seeing that Gabby was a victim of domestic violence, they said that she was the aggressor and Brian was the victim. They didn't feel like the Moab Police Department was trained and had enough experience to handle a situation like this, because if they did, they could have saved Gabby. That's how they feel. All of this could have been avoided if the police had known the danger signs that day. Because Gabby, she was not the aggressor. She was a victim of domestic violence. And Brian was the aggressor. So I looked into this case, and as you know, I always look into all the small details, and as usual, I have a lot of questions because there's just some things that doesn't make sense to me. And let me explain why. I told you before, I know water damage like the back of my pocket. Very well. I've been working with water damage and fire damage for 5-6 years. That notebook, it was in a dry bag. Carlton Reserve was closed because it was completely flooded. It was chest high water and it was really bad. It must have been really bad since they chose to close the reserve. And when they opened it again, they went out looking for Brian and his parents. They made up with the FBI and the police and went to look for him. And then after 30 minutes, whoopsie, they found his dry bag. But there was a huge hole in the dry bag where that wooden box was actually on the way out of that hole. It was a big hole. So that dry bag would have been full of water. That notebook, I'm telling you, that notebook has not been in the water for a few days. There's no water damage on the notebook. And if you look at the pages, normally if you have a book and you put it in water, when it dries up, you can't separate the pages are gonna rip. These pages are completely clean. But then if you look at the pages, there's 3 pages, the 6th line on all 3 pages is blurred. And then there's 3 pages where the bottom line is blurred. To me, it looks like staged water damage because, first of all, if you're writing in your notebook with a green pen, why all of a sudden change it to a black one? Because you need to scratch something out. And so if you have a notebook here where you write with a green pen, then the next page you write something with a black one, and when you turn the page, this black pen the ink would be so wet that it like makes a stamp on the first page and the next page. It doesn't make sense. A pen wouldn't be that wet. And if it's the water from the reserve that came into that notebook, Why is it only the black thing and the green thing in the bottom and line 6 that got water damage? What about all the other writing? It doesn't make sense at all. That notebook has not been in water. And then another thing is, call me crazy, I was looking at Roberta's letter to Brian, and then I looked at the notebook that Brian wrote, and it's so weird. Roberta, every time she say the word I or I'll, like I'll catch you later, you know, I'll, or I'm, every time she uses something with I, she makes a huge I, like a big I. It's only if there's an I inside a word that she uses a small letter. And funny enough, Brian, he does exactly the same thing in the notebook. He also make big I's. They look a bit different than Roberta's, but both of them, they use huge letters every time they say I or I'll or I'm. Try to notice, I made a circle around them. And then if you look at the T's, when they make T, like a T, it looks like a cross. Both of them make T's like a cross. Do you think, I know I might be, some of you might be thinking I'm losing it, but if you look at that notebook and her letter, try to look at the letters, compare them. If I can't even see if I didn't know better, because we don't know. I would almost, please don't attack me, I would almost say that Roberta, she wrote that notebook. The way it's written, it's exactly the same, her letter and his notebook. And then in her letter, when she makes a Y, it's very sharp, like a straight line. You know, you make that one and then a long one. It's very... But there's a few places when she makes the Y, it looks like a completely different person wrote it. Like 2 people wrote that letter. But who? I don't know. Could it be like... I don't know. It's so weird. The eyes, the big eyes and the small eyes in Roberta's letter and Brian's notebook, it's completely the same. I don't know. Try to take a look and let me know what you think. And there's another thing I wanted to say, and that was the letter that Roberta, she put in Brian's backpack. That letter, I noticed it's, I will always love you. I know you will always love me. We are like inseparable and nothing can tear us apart. Me, you, me, you, me, you. That, if that's some kind of goodbye letter, why doesn't it say anything about his dad? Because then it would be like, we will always love you. Our love can never be separated, or whatever it said. Then it would be like you and us. Why is she only talking about herself? What's his relationship with his dad? Because if I was writing a letter like that and there was a possibility that I would never see that person again, I would make sure it was me and my husband. Do you know what I mean? Like, we will always love you and we will always be here for you, and we. Me and your dad. But she doesn't do that. It's only me. Only his mom. I will always love you. I will always be here for you. I know you love me. And nothing can tear us apart. You and me. You and me. What about the dad? Where's he in this picture? Why doesn't she mention anything about the dad in the letter? I just think everything about this case is very strange. And then another thing that really bothers me, I'm sorry I'm talking a bit quiet, is because I'm on Christmas holiday in Denmark because Christmas is coming. So I'm in my sister's house and she's been working all night and she's sleeping in the room right next to me. So I don't want to be too loud, so I'm gonna wake her up. So I hope you can hear me anyway. But another thing I wanted to mention is, first of all, there's only mention about finding a pair of green shorts. And they were not even on his body. They were lying like, I think it was about 5-6 meters away from him. And that's the only clothes that's mentioned. And as you all know, I live in Turkey and we have a lot of wild boars here. And wild boars, they eat everything. They eat the skull, they eat the bones, they eat everything. I think I was told by an investigator in Turkey that the only thing wild boars they don't eat is teeth and hair. They don't eat clothes. So why is there no mention of any clothes? Wild boars, they don't eat clothes. And I don't know. I saw an interview with that bounty hunter dog. He actually said the same thing. There's no mention of clothes, and wild boars, they don't eat clothes. And there's a lot of bones popping up from people in the old Indian reservations. There's bones popping up all the time. I don't know. Where's his clothes? And then it was said that Brian, he shot himself in the left temple, like behind the temple. But Brian, he was right-handed. And I've been looking into suicidal gunshot wounds to the head and different angles and everything. It says that usually when people shoot themselves in the head, they use their dominant hand. That means if Brian is right-handed, he's gonna use the right hand. And it would be like if you're writing a letter with your left hand, you won't have the same control of the pen as if you're using your dominant hand. So imagine holding a gun with the wrong hand. It doesn't make sense. If I have to be completely honest, and I am 100% unprofessional, I have no idea what I'm talking about, this is just my opinion. But in my opinion, Brian didn't shoot himself. I think he was murdered. I don't think he shot himself. And I also saw that dry bag was found 250 feet from his remains. That's like 76 meters. That's really far away. What is his things doing all the way over there? And then 250 feet in the opposite direction, they found a half-written note and a red hat. If you look at pictures of Brian, I have been looking at Brian and Gabby to find out who did that red hat belong to. And every single picture I find of Gabby, she doesn't wear a hat much. And when she does, it's like white or like beige. And Brian's actually the same. Every single picture I found of him, he's wearing a beige cap or white or beige. So where did the red hat come from all of a sudden? The only person I see that love all colors of the rainbow and wear hats in a million colors, that's Roberta. But what would her hat be doing next to, not next to, but close to Brian's remains? It's very strange. And about Brian's suicide, I'm also thinking like, if you're in a state of mind where you're like, I can't take it anymore, I can't live anymore, I'm gonna commit suicide, you go out and commit suicide. You don't decide to take a holiday first. Do you know what I mean? I feel like many people, without being an expert, I just feel like many people, when they very sadly decide to commit suicide, I think it's often a very spontaneous decision. And they're very, very stressed out and they're just like, they can't take anymore, and then they just want to finish it now. I never heard of anyone deciding to go on a holiday, like planning on going on a holiday before they decide to commit suicide. It doesn't make sense. And I'm like, when he was in Carlson Reserve, if he was there, when he was in Carlson Reserve, there would have been peace and quiet for him to calm down and gather his thoughts, his mind. He would be at home. He would be like, because there's full of protesters in front of their house with megaphones. Where's Gabby? Where's Gabby? You coward, come out and tell us where Gabby is. Everybody's shouting at them and attacking them verbally. They can't leave the house without people screaming and shouting at them, demanding to know where Gabby is. It must be extremely stressful. And in that situation, I would imagine that Brian's anxiety would be going sky high. Sky high. He would have been stressed out of his mind. And another thing I also wanted to mention is that when Brian came back the 1st of September, they completely lawyered up. They didn't want to talk to anyone. They didn't want to talk to the public. They didn't want to talk to the police, the FBI. They didn't even tell Gabby's family where she was. They completely sipped it and refused to talk to anyone. And I heard some YouTubers say that maybe they were hiding him, trying to figure out how much evidence there was of him committing a crime. I've been thinking about that theory, that they wanted to hide Brian, keep him away from the police and the public and Gabby's family, because they wanted to check out how much evidence they actually had. And that's why they refused to talk to anyone about her whereabouts. I actually think it's completely opposite. I think they were stalling time because there's coyotes out there, there's wild boars, there's a lot of animals out there that would take care of a human body. And I think they were stalling because if Gabby was out there long enough, I think they were hoping that there would be nothing left. And if there's nothing left, there's no evidence of a crime being committed. So Brian walks free. That's what I think. I don't think they were waiting to see what kind of evidence they had. They were waiting for the evidence to destroy itself before she was found. I know it's macabre but that's the only thing that makes sense to me. If all the bones is gone, all the soft tissue is gone, all the bones are gone, and there's nothing left, they would never be able to prove what actually happened to Gabby. And Brian walks. I think that was the plan, and that's why they zipped up. I don't know, what do you think about this case? Do you think Brian is dead, or do you think that he left the country and he's hiding somewhere? Because there's a lot of things about the remains and the things found around it that doesn't make sense. Because, I don't know, the backpack would also have been very light. There was only a tent inside and some flares and that letter, as far as I know. So if it had been flooded everywhere, if there was a flooding everywhere, and that flooding was able to take that big white dry bag and bring it 76 meters away from his remains, why did the backpack stay next to him? Why didn't it move anywhere? And his shoes were only 6 meters away from him. Why is his shoes and his backpack next to his remains, but the white dry bag and a wooden box is 250 feet in that direction, and a half-written note and a red hat is 250 feet in that direction? And you would say, yeah, but it was flooded everywhere, so it could have been windy, the water could have moved things. Okay, how many kilos does his flip-flops weigh? They would have been miles away. They weigh like nothing. And if there was only a tent and flares and a letter inside his backpack, that backpack would have been light as a feather as well. Why didn't it move? I'm sorry, but I think this is planned. I think it's completely planned. And I don't know exactly how it was planned. And there's so many people saying that they think Brian is still alive somewhere, and this is all a big setup to hide Brian. I don't know. If they staged everything and covered for Brian to have time to run away to another country or something, don't you think the FBI and the police would have found out? I don't know. Do you think he's living in another country and he's fine? Then whose body was that? I don't think they went to his body because, first of all, I don't think they wanted to see their son like that. Second of all, I think they didn't want to leave footprints, hair, fibers, saliva, anything. So they just planted items around him, because then they knew when the officials, FBI and the police, they started to find these items, they would find Brian like this. I think it's very possible the parents knew where he was and that he was deceased, and they planted some of these items around him. I'm sorry. I'm not convinced that this was a suicide. Maybe they paid something to, I don't know, to do this. I have no idea. But I am 95% convinced that Brian, he didn't shoot himself. So the question is, who did? So that's it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know in the comment section down below what you think happened and if you think that Brian is still alive. Other than that, don't forget to hit that like button, notification bell and the subscribe button. And until the next one, take care and stay safe. Bye.